Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. As we keep making our way through this year, I bet a lot of you are thinking about those big goals you have. The ones that could really make this your best year ever.
Absolutely. It's that time when you really want to make things happen.
It is. And to help us get there today, we're diving deep into Michael Hyatt's book, Your Best Year Ever, a 5-step plan for achieving your most important goals.
This is no ordinary self-help book, let me tell you. Hyatt brings decades of experience and serious research to the table. We're talking about real strategies based on how people achieve incredible things.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's not just about motivation, it's about understanding the mechanics of success. And some pretty impressive people have taken notice, like Tony Robbins, Cal Newport, John Gordon, Donald
Oh
Miller.
yeah, definitely big names who have influenced how countless people approach their own success.
For sure. And Hayek gets right to it by saying a lot of the traditional advice about goals is actually wrong. Instead of just relying on willpower, he gives you this 5-step system. And it's rooted in the way our minds actually work. It's about realizing what you can achieve, making peace with your past, planning your future, finding your why, and figuring out what really drives you.
Yeah, to really grasp how powerful a mindset shift can be, think about the story of runner Heather Kampf. She's in this race, and she completely wipes out. You know the kind of fall that usually takes you out of the running?
Yeah, you see those and just think, oh no, it's over.
Right. The commentators are basically saying she was done for.
You just feel for the athlete in those moments.
Totally. But instead of staying down, she gets back up and starts catching up. The crowd goes wild, and against all odds, she actually wins the race.
I love that story. Talk about turning things around.
It shows that even when things look impossible, that breakthrough you're aiming for, whether it's in your health, relationships, finances, it's still possible.
It's so inspiring to see someone with that level of determination. And then there's the story of Nelson the dog and the invisible fence, which is all about how our minds work. They put in this underground fence system, and his collar would give him a warning if he went too far.
Ah, clever idea.
Right. And it worked perfectly, kept him in the yard safe and sound.
But here's where it gets really interesting. After a while, they didn't even need the collar anymore. Nelson wouldn't cross that invisible line no matter what.
So the external limit became an internal one.
Exactly. The external limit had become an internal one, and it shows how powerful our beliefs are. That initial external constraint turned into a self-imposed boundary, shaping how Nelson approached things.
It makes you think about how many invisible fences we might be living with without realizing it.
Absolutely. And that takes us to the first big step in Hyatt's book, believing in the possibility.
Okay, so let's talk about believing. How much of our success really comes down to our beliefs?
This isn't just feel-good stuff. The idea that beliefs shape reality has been around for ages. You've got William Thomas's theorem. If people define situations as real, they are real in their consequences. It basically says that what we believe has real-world effects.
So our perceptions can become self-fulfilling prophecies.
Exactly. Robert K. Merton called it the self-fulfilling prophecy, building on Thomas's idea. And even Karl Popper explored this with the Oedipus effect, the idea that our expectations can actually cause the outcomes we expect.
Okay, so if we believe we can achieve something, we're more likely to take the steps to make it happen. And if we're filled with doubt, we might sabotage ourselves before we even begin.
You got it. And Hyatt calls doubt a goal toxin. He even points to research like that Harris poll that found that fewer adults over 65 set New Year's resolutions. They've come to believe it's pointless.
Probably from years of trying and not quite getting there.
Yeah, those past setbacks can turn into these mental barriers like Nelson's invisible fence, even after the physical one was gone.
Like developing a script that says, don't even bother, you'll just fail again. That's got to be tough to break.
It can be. But Hyatt suggests looking at things through different frames. He tells this great story about Steve Mura, a baseball pitcher, who was convinced he couldn't win on a certain mound. His coach, Harvey Dorfman, really dug into why he felt that way.
So they challenged that limiting belief. I like it.
Right. And it turned out that Mura's perception of the mound's angle was the issue, more in his head than reality.
So by changing how he saw the mound, he could change his belief about pitching on it.
Exactly. Rosamund Stone Zander and Benjamin Zander put it beautifully. Draw a different frame around the same set of circumstances, and new pathways come into view. Our limitations are often just the boundaries of how we're currently seeing things. So think about a goal you're unsure about. What beliefs are making you hesitate? What if you saw it as a guaranteed success?
Whoa, that's a good one to think about. It makes you question everything.
It really does. And it reminds me of all those impossible things that people achieved, like breaking the sound barrier. For the longest time, everyone thought it was physically impossible, and then Chuck Yeager went and did it.
And now supersonic flight is almost routine.
Right, or the 4-minute mile. People thought it was a human limit until Roger Bannister broke it. Then suddenly others started doing it too. And human-powered flight was another one, a dream for centuries until it finally happened.
It's amazing how quickly our perception of what's possible can change.
Totally. And those wild skateboarding tricks. From Mike McGill's 540 to Tony Hawk's 720 and then Tom Shar landing a 1083 full rotations at such a young age. It's
I
incredible.
remember seeing that. It was mind-blowing.
And what Shar said afterward is really interesting. It was the hardest trick I've ever done, but it was easier than I thought. It really shows how our perceived limits can hold us back more than anything else.
And this isn't just about extreme feats. It affects all of us in our everyday lives, our work relationships, personal growth. But we don't have to be defined by those perceptions.
Exactly. And that brings us to those beliefs that can really hold us back. Limiting beliefs and the power of abundance thinking.
Right. So Hyatt talks about scarcity thinking versus abundance thinking. He gives the example of Charlie, who acts like the world is a zero-sum game, always feeling wronged, hoarding relationships, seeing everything as a potential loss.
Sounds exhausting, to be honest.
Yeah, it creates this negative spiral, pushing people away and ultimately blocking the success he wants. And then there's Robert, who embodies abundance thinking. He's generous, celebrates other people's wins, invests in relationships.
So it's like seeing the world as a pie with only so many slices versus believing you can always bake a bigger pie.
Exactly. Researchers even have names for these mindsets. Entity theorists are more like scarcity thinkers. They believe abilities are fixed. Incremental theorists are like abundance thinkers, seeing challenges as chances to grow.
That's a great way to put it. It's about your outlook on growth and potential.
Yeah. And the book breaks down the key differences. Scarcity thinkers tend to be pessimistic, see challenges as impossible, play it safe, be suspicious, feel threatened by competition, and focus on protecting what they have.
Right. And on the other hand, abundance thinkers are generally optimistic about the future. They see challenges as opportunities, they think big and take risks. They're open and trusting, they welcome competition, and they focus on creating more value for everyone.
It's a great framework for understanding how our beliefs shape our actions. Now, the question is, where do these limiting beliefs come from in the first place?
Well, as we talked about before, past failures and setbacks definitely play a role. But there are outside forces too, like the media. News often has a negativity bias. If it bleeds, it leads, as they say.
It's like Tolkien said, the most readily annealable news is about murders and football scores.
Exactly. And Michael Grothaus argues that constantly consuming negative news can make us more anxious and feel helpless without offering solutions. And fear and negativity grab our attention, which is what media outlets are after.
I mean, it makes sense from a business perspective, even if it's not the healthiest thing for us.
Right. And then there's the impact of our social circle. Psychologist Henry Cloud, in his book The Power of the Other, says the people we hang out with really shape our thinking. Surround yourself with Charlies, and you might start thinking like a Charlie. But the opposite is true too. Being around Roberts can help you develop an abundance mindset.
You can totally feel the energy shift depending on who you're with.
Absolutely. And Hyatt shares this story about Steve Jobs' wife, Laureen Powell. She talked about his epic sense of possibility, his ability to see and create things that didn't exist yet. He wasn't limited by the present.
That's so powerful, being able to see beyond what is to what could be.
It is. And it makes you think what's missing in your life, your relationships, your health, your dreams that you could bring into reality. Recognizing that many obstacles are in our minds is a big step toward breaking free.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've identified these invisible barriers. How do we actually dismantle them? How do we upgrade our beliefs, which is the third step in Hyatt's book?
Hyatt uses Martin Luther King Jr. as an example of someone who faced huge limiting beliefs. Think about what he was up against during the Civil Rights Movement. The belief that Black Americans were asking for too much, that nonviolence wouldn't work, that white society wouldn't change, that racial equality was impossible.
It's hard to even grasp the scale of the resistance he faced.
It is. But King rejected those limiting beliefs and embraced what Hyatt calls liberating truths, a different way of seeing things. He chose a different frame, like the Zanders talked about. He held on to a vision of a better future, even when it seemed impossible.
It's a powerful reminder that change is possible even when it seems unlikely.
Absolutely. And it's not just about societal change. Hyatt also points to Alcoholics Anonymous. A core part of their program is shifting the belief I'm powerless over alcohol to With support and effort, I can choose sobriety.
So it's about changing the story we tell ourselves about what's possible.
Exactly. Hyatt highlights two common limiting beliefs: feeling powerless to change things and believing you lack the resources to achieve your goals. Do either of those resonate with you?
Oh yeah, that feeling of powerlessness definitely gets to me sometimes. It's easy to feel like you're just reacting to things instead of being in control.
Right, but Hyatt shares the story of Aaron Gruwell, a rookie teacher who took on a class of at-risk students. People had basically given up on them, even her own father. But Gruwell believed she could connect with them, and she achieved amazing results. It shows the power we have even in tough situations. And it reminds me of what King said during the bus boycott, urging people to use the tools they had no matter how small they seemed.
So it's about focusing on what you can control, even if it feels limited. And what about the resource limitation? So many people think if I had more time, more money, more connections, then I could do it.
But Hyatt makes a great point, that not having enough resources can actually be a good thing. It forces you to be resourceful, to get creative, and to build resilience. It pushes you to find a way. He quotes King's Nobel lecture: "There is no deficit in human resources. The deficit is in human will."
I love that quote. It shifts the focus from what we lack to our own inner drive.
It's a powerful reframe. And Hyatt also tackles the limiting beliefs around age, feeling too old or too young to pursue something. He points out that the average age of successful entrepreneurs is actually in their late 30s, with many over 50, highlighting the value of experience. But he also gives examples of successful young entrepreneurs, so age isn't a barrier either way. It's about your perspective and belief in yourself.
So how do we actually go about upgrading these deep-seated beliefs? What's the process?
Hyatt lays out a 5-step approach. First, you identify the specific belief you want to change. Then you understand its negative impact. Next, you challenge its validity by looking for evidence that contradicts it. Then you consider different perspectives. And finally, you revise the limiting belief into an empowering, liberating truth. He stresses the importance of writing down the new belief to solidify it in your mind.
It's taking that abstract idea and making it concrete.
Exactly. It's not enough to just wish you thought differently. You have to actively replace the old belief with a new one.
Makes sense. Okay, so we started to shift our mindset. Now Hyatt moves on to this interesting step: completing the past. It seems counterintuitive, but he says it's crucial for a better future.
It might seem that way at first, but psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Dale T. Miller talk about the power of backward thinking. They say that we need to acknowledge and process our experiences, both good and bad, for them to feel complete. If we just try to bury the past, it can come back to haunt us.
Like carrying around baggage we don't even realize is weighing us down.
Exactly. Hyatt introduces the after-action review, or AAR, which businesses and the military use to learn from past events. He uses an example of a training exercise where a less experienced team surprisingly beat a more seasoned team. The AAR helps analyze what happened and why.
And this isn't just for organizations, individuals can use it too, right?
Definitely. Hyatt breaks it down into 4 questions: what was supposed to happen, what actually happened, what went well, and why. What could have gone better and how. He recommends journaling your answers. Studies have even shown that writing about negative experiences can improve well-being.
So it's about consciously learning from the past, not just letting it fade away.
You got it. Hyatt shares an example of someone named Blake who went through a bunch of setbacks all at once, a breakup damage to his home, and emphasizes that everyone goes through rough patches. He also highlights the importance of recognizing those unsung hero moments when you acted with courage or integrity, even if no one saw it.
Those moments of inner strength that maybe only you know about, but that shaped you.
Exactly. And for someone named Natalie, the backward thinking exercise helped her see the good she'd done in a previous job and feel better about her career change.
So it's about finding meaning and learning even in the difficult times.
For sure. It's also about looking for patterns in your past year, maybe in your productivity,
Yeah.
the tough choices you faced, or your struggles with certain beliefs.
Yeah, understanding those recurring themes can be really insightful.
Totally. Hyatt shares his own experience of losing a big business deal and the 3 lessons he learned from it. He emphasizes that applying those lessons is what turned that setback into growth.
Otherwise, it would have just been a painful memory.
Right. And he warns against going through reviews and then not doing anything with what you learn, which research from Harvard Business Review backs up. Reflection without action is pointless.
Makes sense. It's about turning insight into positive change.
Definitely. Now, Hyatt gets into this tricky but important emotion: regret. He talks about times when his work negatively impacted his family, And he uses the analogy of tattoos, specifically the no regrets tattoo, to show how regret can actually be a good thing.
I wouldn't have thought of regret as beneficial.
It seems strange, but research by Brené Brown and others shows that regret can point us to areas where we need to make changes. As psychologist Janet Landman said, it all depends on what you do with it.
So instead of dwelling in guilt, we should use regret as a sign to course correct.
Precisely. And neurologically, regret is linked to our ability to learn and change. Brain scans show activity in the medial orbitofrontal cortex when we feel regret. Damage to that area reduces regret, but also hinders learning from mistakes. So being able to feel regret means your brain can adapt and grow.
Wow, that's fascinating. So completing the past isn't about dwelling in negativity. It's about acknowledging, learning, and integrating our experiences, both the good and the bad, to create a better path forward.
Exactly. And that leads us to something really crucial that connects reflecting on the past and shaping the future.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. It feels like a natural bridge between those two
And
things.
it is. Hyatt quotes Dietrich Bonhoeffer, "It is only with gratitude that life becomes rich." And he talks about Duke basketball coach Mike Krzyzewski, who had his team write names of people who helped them on a basketball before their championship game. It's a way of recognizing the support we have.
It's a beautiful gesture. And it's more than just that. Research by Emmons and Mitro shows that gratitude is actually linked to achieving goals.
It's amazing, right? Gratitude doesn't make you complacent. It actually helps you work harder towards your goals and makes you more resilient. Hyatt calls it the gratitude advantage.
Okay, so how does feeling thankful actually make us more resilient and driven? First, gratitude helps us see the good in our lives, even when things are tough. Second, it helps us deal with negative emotions like stress and envy. And third, it broadens our perspective and helps us see more options. We shift from scarcity to abundance, from feeling limited to feeling resourceful and creative. This is all part of the broaden and build theory of positive emotions.
It's like gratitude rewires our brains for success.
Exactly. And Hyatt suggests 3 ways to practice gratitude. Starting and ending your day focusing on blessings, maybe through prayer or reflection, practicing thankfulness throughout the day, like before meals, and keeping a gratitude journal.
But what if you're going through a really hard time and it's tough to find things to be grateful for?
Hyatt says that's a real struggle. He suggests focusing on things outside your immediate problems, like a friend's support, a beautiful sunset, a positive memory. He also talks about the pleasure paradox, where things lose their wonder because we get used to them. To combat that, psychologist Timothy D. Wilson recommends the George Bailey technique, imagining life without something you appreciate.
It's a powerful reminder to not take things for granted.
It is. Ultimately, Hyatt says gratitude isn't just a nice feeling. It's a key ingredient for achieving goals and living a fulfilling life. He quotes John Gordon, who says that consistent gratitude leads to incredible benefits and major life change.
It sounds like gratitude is the foundation for everything else.
It really is.
Yeah.
And with this foundation, you're ready to tackle the next steps, designing your future, connecting with your why, and mastering your motivation. But those are conversations for another deep dive.
Yes, for sure. So as you go about your week, think about this. What's one limiting belief you've become aware of today? What's one small action you can take to challenge that belief and open yourself to new possibilities?
And think back on the past year. What's one unsung hero moment of your own that you can celebrate? How can remembering that inner strength help you reach your goals?
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into Michael Hyatt's Your Best Year Ever. We hope it's given you some valuable tools as you work towards your best year yet. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the ideas that can help us live more intentional and fulfilling lives.